Next week, Sarasota voters will go to the polls to begin the process of picking 2 city commissioners. There are 8 candidates for 2 at-large seats. If no candidate wins a majority, there will be a runoff in May involving the top 3 vote-getters. For the next 2 nights, you'll get to meet all 8 candidates here on ABC 7 at 7. We're spreading this out over 2 days to give each candidate enough time to make their case, and we have divided the field in no particular order. So joining us tonight are Susan Chapman, the only incumbent in the race, Jen Ahern-Koch, a business owner and co-founder of STOP, an organization dedicated to slowing down downtown development, Hagen Brody, a former prosecutor in Sarasota County, and Matt Sperling, a community activist. Here are the basic ground rules. You'll have a minute to respond when I ask a question, and then each of you could take 30 seconds to respond to those comments if you so choose. We're going to be flexible because we want a good, lively conversation. And I want to say we appreciate you all coming here tonight. Why don't we start with downtown development, because it's so often on the minds of people down here. There are people who believe that downtown Sarasota is getting too congested. There's too much going on, and they're wondering what the city commission is going to do about it, and if you are elected to the city commission. Commissioner, I'll start with you because you're there right now and you've had to deal with these issues. Do you believe there is too much development going on downtown?
Yes, but the city commission has absolutely no say-so on it.
Okay.
That's all administrative approval. So the public and the city commission have no say-so. The only way to change it is to change our comprehensive plan, the downtown master plan.
Right, and that is a big issue that is part of this campaign about the rule changes in terms of whether each development should go before the commission. And Jennifer, you are a part of that effort in terms of trying to push for these changes. Why, and what do you think that's going to accomplish?
Well, I just wanted to clear one thing up, that STOP is not really about slowing growth necessarily. We're about, there are four goals. One is to get rid of administrative approval in the downtown of the city of Sarasota, so in that downtown master plan area. The other one is to keep it from proliferating throughout the rest of the city. And then the other one is traffic, and the last one is sidewalks, wider sidewalks. So STOP has those four goals, and one of the main goals of STOP is to inform the public about our system and about administrative approval and about the way things are processed in the city of Sarasota. So many people don't understand what administrative approval is, and it's basically there's no community voice in the development approval process. And we feel very strongly, I feel very strongly that the community should have a voice in the way their city develops.
Hagen, do you think that the public should have a say in terms of every big development that is going on in downtown?
Well, look, you know, the public has to understand that there's legal realities that we have to deal with. You know, I think that the two to my right, their heart is in the right place, but the way they're going about it is all wrong. You know, 15 years ago, we changed the comprehensive plan and the zoning code when Andreas Duani came in, and we, you know, in my opinion, we made some mistakes at that time that we need to address now. But the way that you change course is not to change the procedure, but to change the substance of the zoning code. You know, what people are frustrated with is that we have a substantive problem with the way that Sarasota is being developed. You know, changing the procedure doesn't address the substantive problem. It just simply doesn't. We have to address it in the zoning code.
Matt, should the procedure be changed?
No, absolutely not. I live downtown. The density is wonderful. The problem is the UTC Mall, Bendersonville type of sprawl. And people who don't like the density should simply move out of the city, I believe. That's what cities are for.
But, you know, there's been so much talk about the issues involving, let's zero in on it, the view, and whether it's crowding people out from seeing the water, the width of the sidewalks. Commissioner, for those who are complaining about that, do they have a point to make?
I think they do have a point to make. The mass and scale is no longer human scale, so people feel very uncomfortable with the buildings that have been developed, especially the view. The mass and scale is out of human scale. There are certain things that you can do when you're building large buildings that can make people feel more comfortable. Step backs after the 4th or the 6th floor, setbacks from the curb. All of those things make people feel more comfortable. Green space, we're losing a lot of green space as a result of the densities. And in addition, some of the buildings that are being built are creating huge transportation problems. The view especially, but there is a large super block that was created on 2nd Street.
All right, there is so much more to this particular area, and we're going to pick it up after we take a commercial break. We are just getting started on our debate. It will continue right after this break. Welcome back to our debate. We are being joined tonight by 4 of the candidates for the Sarasota City Commission. Susan Chapman, the only incumbent in the race; Jen Ahern-Koch, co-founder of STOP, an organization dedicated to slowing down development, although you say that STOP is involved with more things than that; Hagen Brody, a former prosecutor; and Matt Sperling, a community activist. And let's stay on the conversation in terms of downtown development for a second, because Jen, you have explained what STOP is all about and what it wants in terms of changing the procedures, but there has been some pushback with other folks saying that, and respond to this, it is fundamentally unfair and un-American to legislate on a case-by-case basis. We are a country where the rule of law applies, and an open-ended and uncertain public hearing process creates an environmental dependent on the political climate, which can change. If you could respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what STOP is proposing is nothing new. It was changed 14 years ago, actually. And our city used to have the public hearing process for the entire city. It only is new, we call it an experiment, since the last 14 years. And what you have in the downtown of the city of Sarasota is the result of that experiment. In the rest of the city, you have the administrative and the public process that work together. And what you end up at the end of the day is a much better project where you have community buy-in and you have the community embraces the project. When you have the city staff and you have the developer and you have the community working together, at the end of the day, you're going to have a much better project.
Hagen, you're shaking your head.
Okay. What I think the public has to understand is the purpose of the administrative review process. Somebody has a piece of property downtown. They present a site plan, right? The administrative process just determines whether it fits the zoning code, the prohibitions and restrictions of the zoning code. You use the example, the view. There's a prohibition or there's a mandate that it be built up to the sidewalk. There's no discretion there, okay? The public review process does the exact same thing. It reviews a site plan to see whether it fits the zoning code, the prohibitions and the requirements of the zoning code. If you want to change something, you have to change the substantive zoning code. You don't change the process. This is not, I think people have been led to believe that they get to rearrange or redesign their neighbor's house, and it's just not the case.
Matt, is there a particular size of a project that should be the tripwire for the full commission to take up?
Absolutely not. The rules are the rules.
Here's the thing that I think you need to understand is as soon as, if somebody buys a piece of property with the expectation to build a certain building on there that fits the zoning code, as soon as the process takes that right away, you're going to have a lawsuit. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, are costly lawsuits to the city.
Commissioner, let me give you the last word.
There is a statute, and there is state statute and there is the comprehensive plan, and they both have compatibility assessments in them. So it is not changing the law to have a compatibility assessment by the public.
All right,
Can I add
sure.
One word is that the code is interpreted. It's not black and white. And when the public is not allowed in that interpretation of the code, then you have parties that are at that determining what that compatibility is or that predictability is, and that's the city staff and the developer. The community is not in that interpretation. They are not in that definition of what it means to be
Our debate will continue
compatible.
in the second half hour of our broadcast right after we check on the weather, so stay with us. Tonight we are hearing from 4 of the 8 candidates running for Sarasota City Commission. The other 4 will join us tomorrow. Here now are Susan Chapman, who is running for re-election, Jen Ahern-Koch, a business owner and co-founder of STOP, Hagan Brody, a former prosecutor in Sarasota County, and Matt Sperling, a community activist. I tell you, one issue that is on the mind of a lot of folks, or the issue between Lido and Siesta Keys over beach renourishment. Obviously, and we have interviewed Tom Barwin, it is a necessity that something be done because it's a matter of public safety and losing a wonderful area. But obviously, it's also going to affect Siesta Key and in terms of the way the sand is moved around. What should happen, Commissioner?
Well, actually, we don't know if it will affect Siesta Key the way sand is moved around. People are afraid that it will affect Siesta Key, and we know as city residents and as county residents that both beaches are really essential to our economy, and we have to make sure both beaches are functioning. Lido Key is in an emergency situation, but we're facing permits that have been given, but we're facing litigation. So we have to find a way to resolve this litigation and try to find an emergency fix for the sand.
Jen, do you support that litigation, and if so, why?
The Siesta Key group, no, I don't support it because one of the things that I really appreciate about the process that's going on for Lido Beach is, like we said, first of all, it is a safety issue, and second of all, it's a measured approach. So they have built into the process that when they start, should they see some negative effects on Siesta Key, they will stop, and they're going to measure it all along the way. So that's something I can appreciate.
Hagan, same question.
Yeah, I do. You know, it's more of a matter of time.
Do you support the litigation?
If you have to. I mean, Lido Beach is eroding, and you know, there's property at risk there. You know, Lido Beach has been renourished 16 times since 1967. This is a comprehensive renourishment that's going to include elements of protection moving forward. It's 20 years in the making. Congress has already approved the money. You know, the Army Corps of Engineers has been studying this for years, and they came to the conclusion that Lido Beach needed to be renourished from Big Pass, and you know, I haven't heard anything to the contrary.
Matt, do you support the efforts of those residents who want to stop this?
Well, my father's park, Ted Sperling Park at South Lido, is at the end. It's had no erosion. When these people built on a barrier island next to the Gulf, they think we're just going to protect their property rights. If I have a sinkhole in my backyard, I don't think they're worried about me. So I question why property rights have anything to do with this.
Does anybody want to respond to that?
Sure. I mean, you know, I think it's the city's duty to protect the houses and the condominiums that are built there. Like I said, this is not the first time that we've renourished Lido Beach. It was partially man-made, so it is very susceptible to erosion, and Siesta Key is not. Siesta Key is actually the opposite. It's growing in size. So, you know, I do support the Army Corps of Engineers conclusion.
All right. If there's, unless somebody else wants to weigh in again, or Commissioner?
Well, we in the city have also given a fund of $2.5 million to give an additional guarantee to the people of Siesta Key that if anything happens, they will be protected in an attempt to resolve this litigation and to move forward.
All right, let me ask you all about the issue of homelessness because I have talked to both people from the city and the county who say, you know what, we are making progress. There have been some bumps in the roads, but I tell you, when you drive around downtown Sarasota, I cannot myself remember seeing more homeless people on the streets than since I took a family vacation to Philadelphia. Right. There's been a debate for years now about whether there should be another shelter in Sarasota. Commissioner, I'll start with you again. Should there be another shelter in Sarasota? And if not, then what is the answer here? Because we're not finding it yet.
Well, we know what the answer is, and the answer is housing, permanent supportive housing, housing first. That's the only thing both state and federal government will support. We have housed over 500 people this year, or through working with different agencies, and we're making progress. But anyone who's had someone with addiction or mental illness in their family know how difficult it is to get people off the street or to provide services for them. So we've made a lot of progress. It's just not enough.
Jen, is it not enough? Is there another answer that we're not thinking of here?
Well, I think what the city is doing as well is they're working with the county, and they are going to be developing a network system of all of the nonprofit organizations that we have in our county. So we have a lot of organizations, as we know, that deal with homelessness and with addiction issues and with mental illness. And what we have now is we have a consultant who is going to measure all of these institutions that we have to see where we have a lot of help and where we're missing, and then how we can fix that so we have a wonderful network of services, and the city can engage with these organizations in the Housing First effort and continue on its progress.
Housing First, is that the answer?
Okay, first of all, hiring another consultant is not the answer. We spend so much money on consultants. You know, we just had one down here that we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on. You know, I dealt with this issue at length as a prosecutor. Housing First is nothing more than government subsidized apartments, taxpayer funded apartments. You know, the 20% of chronic homeless folks with severe mental health issues and severe substance abuse issues need to have those issues addressed first. We have great nonprofits in this community. That's who's made progress on this issue, not the city commission. As a commissioner, I would work to bring those nonprofits together to make progress on that issue.
Matt, you've made some interesting comments about the homelessness
Yeah, I have
issue.
a very simple. I don't use the H word. We have people in crisis and we have vagabonds. The city of Sarasota granted a special exception 24 years ago for the Resurrection House to operate non-conforming and the Salvation Army. I'm recommending that we time out the special exception and that the cities of Longboat Key, Venice, Northport, and the county of Sarasota should host those organizations for the next 25 years.
So what are you saying? We should move the problem
No,
out of...
they're operating under a special exception given 24 years ago. The Herald Tribune editorial at the time said, are we helping or are we enabling? And I think the time is for the other 3 cities in the county of Sarasota and the county itself to carry this burden. City people have carried it long enough.
Anybody would like to respond to that?
Well, I know that there are some fragments, and we went through the Marbot phase, and now we know that is not an answer. We know the answer, the only evidence-based answer is Housing First. And I can tell you that the expert being brought in is funded partially by the Gulf Coast Community Foundation.
All right, Jen, you get the last word here.
Right. So from my end, Housing First is a proven method. It works. In the state of Utah, they've implemented Housing First. They solved their homeless issue by 91%. So I would absolutely agree that, you know, when you have a methodology that is sanctioned and proven.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll have closing statements from our candidates, so we'll be back in just a moment. Time for closing statements from our candidates, and Commissioner, we'll start with you.
Well, I think it's important to recognize that quality of life is essential. It's the goose that laid the golden egg for our city and our economy. And things that are happening with development are threatening that quality of life, including transportation gridlock, which we really need to address. And I've been a member of the Metropolitan Planning Organization trying to get accurate traffic counts in order to get more money to address our real transportation problems. We're way behind on infrastructure that supports this massive development that we're having. And I would appreciate the opportunity to move forward with some of those transportation alternatives and preserving our quality of life, which is very important to this community. So I would ask for everyone's vote on March 14th.
Jennifer.
So what is essential at the discussion is reintroducing the community's voice and how our city develops, especially when we're talking about those super blocks with the urban space that affects all of us. Affordable housing is something that is very important to me as well. We've heard a lot of talk along the way of how are we going to retain the youth here, and that is, a piece of that is not only the youth but also workforce housing. It's for our entire community. Affordable housing is an essential issue, and it can be addressed and it can be introduced into our development process again, along with diversifying our economy so that we can create jobs in different industries. Renewable energy, solar are two areas where I think that we have a lot of room to grow. And from my end, my experience on the planning board, for 6 years I was both chair and vice chair, president of my neighborhood association, involved with the STOP organization. I have a lot of vantage points of experience in the city and how it functions and it works. So I would ask for people's vote on March 14th.
Hagan, what do you want people to take away from this conversation?
Well, look, thanks for having us. You know, there are some serious issues that the city is facing. Obviously, traffic is a major issue. People aren't happy with the direction that Sarasota has been going over the last several years, and I'm not either. But I'm trying to find cost-effective, prudent ways to deal with it, to redirect the growth of our city, deal with homeless issues that have been lingering for years, and try to improve the traffic situation. But my question is, if you want to see change, why would you leave the reins in the hands of the people that got us here? All right, the folks up here with me have been intimately involved in this process, in this government for a long time, and people are not happy with it. So I'm asking people to vote for a new direction in Sarasota. Again, I'm a former prosecutor. I grew up here. I went to Sarasota High School. I want to see this city succeed. And so I am asking for your vote. I hope everybody goes out and votes on Tuesday, March 14th.
Matt, make your case.
Very simple. We need apartments for the workers. We have a 9-hole golf course, underutilized at Bobby Jones. Our city commission hires another consultant to another wasting of $135,000. That 9-hole executive course, 2,000 apartments can be built there with no public money. And there's a railroad track 2.8 miles into the downtown core. I don't care about the legacy trail. I care about workers being able to get to work. And we have 850 new hotel rooms. There's a huge labor demand. Privileged people demand a lot of help. I have a plan on having the workers live near downtown that'll eliminate much of the traffic, and it's the right thing to do. Not affordable housing like the idea that they limit the price of a single-family home. I'm talking about apartments.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. For being here, Hagan Brody, Susan Chapman, Jen Ahern-Koch, and Matt Sperling. They are all on the ballot this Tuesday for Sarasota City Commission. Tomorrow we will be joined by the other 4 candidates, and make sure to tune in at 7 p.m. for our second debate.